Valley Conservation Commission on January 2nd, 2013 is hereby called to order under the authority of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Brownlee's Wetlands Protection Bylaw and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. I will now call the roll for attendance. Robert Carpenter. Dave DeMonico.
Present.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys.
Here.
Sam Stripe is absent. Kurt Turner.
Here.
And Doug Watson.
Here.
Chairing, and we have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
We have payroll to sign?
No, but I do have
We
a
have some
request
expenses.
for some expenses to be authorized for reimbursement, if I could.
It's a labeler.
A machine that prints out labels, so you can move to labeling the file jackets and other things,
It's like a good idea.
and there's the 3 backup invoices for your review and initialing. And I did also hand out 3-page minutes.
That's all we have administratively?
There are some other things, but they can be
Wait till the end.
deferred and inserted when there's a gap in the activities.
You said you handed out 3 minutes or just one?
Just one was 3
One.
pages.
Oh, 3 pages, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the minutes and see if we can get those approved before we start. 3, Brent?
Mhm.
Third line. No, excuse me. 5th line. Should say the office did not have a record.
Yes. Got it. Sorry. Yeah, the first page did get proofread this morning by Jean, but I didn't have the other 2 pages ready yet. So that's my fault.
Question, top, very top of the second page. Probably asked this in the meeting, but the word bottomless seems impossible.
Well, it is the term that is used, and it's a direct
It's the
quote
term of
from
art.
the gentleman that was explaining the functioning of the system. And it refers to the fact that they scrape off the topsoil and the landscaping wall they build to contain the sand that's for the filter then doesn't have any membrane or anything. It just has direct contact with the subsoil, and therefore liquids and effluent can continue to filter down, percolate down through
It's not bottomless.
the surface of the native soil.
Infinity, it's just not contained.
Yes, yeah.
Ask if you can put quotes around the frame.
Gave me pause at first too.
I could, that is their standard, apparently that is how it's
Yeah,
consistently described,
yep,
so
that's the way water.
I'd be more than happy to quote it.
Other than that, didn't have anything.
Anything else?
No comment.
Hey, just for the head of it, whatever happened to, I can't remember, what happened with Mr. Colby?
Yeah, I was thought the same thought. How did that end up?
We did allow him, but I
Can't
don't
remember that.
know whether it was a very successful year for him, but I believe the field did get prepped and harrowed so that it was a smoother non-harrowed.
Hmm.
What do I happen to the wild pasture signage situation? Is that,
The box of signs is sitting in my office waiting for me to go out and install them.
is this the most, let me ask it a different way. Are there any minutes that haven't been written prior to this date?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Different blocks.
Anything else on this one? Nope. Nothing. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, are you here to address us? Do you have a newspaper ad with you?
I do, yes. Full sheet.
This is the 7 7:45 item. On the agenda, this is a legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Laws 131, Section 40, as amended, and the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Public meeting will be held on Wednesday, January 2nd, 2013 at 7:45 p.m. Room 5, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider a request for determination of applicability application, followed by James Coigbro, Free Palms Group LLC, for proposed construction of a replacement sewage disposal system and installation of a fence, possibly within the 100-foot buffer zone of watering vegetated wetlands, excuse me, at 5 Prospect Street, map 15, parcel 80 in Raleigh. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so after the last meeting I came here, I did test pits very shortly after that. That was
Yeah.
on December 11th. And then I put together the septic plan, which you see in front of you here. And able to keep the septic system 57 feet from the wetland, so it's completely outside of the 50-foot buffer. Do have a 40 mil poly barrier along the outside edge of the 5-foot over dig, so that's safe as far as being out of the 50-foot buffer, and that will give extra protection. And it was good soil. When we did the test pit, it was all sand and gravel. So everything worked out real well as far as being able to fit a system in there between the constraints that I had to work with. Got a 2-compartment, 1,500-gallon septic tank, followed by a 1,000-gallon pump chamber, and then up to the system. And so I guess what we're looking for tonight is the, hopefully the approval for this to go in, and also an after-the-fact approval on that fence which was installed.
For the record, you are?
Doug Smith, Design, Soil Smith Designs is the name of my company.
Have you read Brent's memo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is your company located, Mr. Smith?
New Boston, New Hampshire.
Where's that?
It's about 12 miles west of the Manchester Airport. Usually if I tell people about the airport, everyone has heard of that anyways, but it's a small
Close to
town.
New Ipswich?
No, it's closer to Bedford,
Oh,
Amherst,
yes, that's why.
Goffstown, towns like that.
I've been to Bedford many times.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew I saw it
We
somewhere.
do border that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Brent is suggesting a possible no cut, no disturb. Thoughts on that?
Yes, where were you talking, what area?
Okay, well, basically, because this fence has been installed in relatively close proximity to the edge of the bordering vegetated wetlands, it seemed to make sense to just start from here, use the existing silt fence line, and then straw wattles, especially where we'd already had the inadvertent impact over here.
Right.
This would also be consistent with how the commission treated the property that's exactly on the other side of this wetland system that directly abuts this property. The first house on Havel Street, which is number 10, I think.
Which property was that?
Number 10.
Who was the owner?
I don't remember now, it had recently changed hands, and we permitted the installation of a system here and established some no cut, no disturb posts down across here, because basically there was no topographic transition between where the yard was and fill had been placed, and then,
Yeah.
so some mowing and fire pit and some other activities had intruded into the delineated wetlands, and so we established some posts there, and it was a variable width, nothing too extreme, so as not to take away usable yard. And this would accomplish the same thing. This would work with where the erosion controls are. And in fact, I showed a picture of this line, which is right behind the detached shed. This is one of the areas where I would propose for one of the 3 posts with signs to be placed, and this was also the area that became impacted because of the improper disposal of dirt and leaf matter that had been raked up from the yard, which you can see, of course, the yard was definitely raked and stuff. But again, it would not take away any usability from the area that in the past has been utilized for the residents of the dwelling. It would still allow enough of a corridor on the back side of the dwelling to accomplish putting up a ladder and doing
Right.
Maintenance or
work.
painting or whatever.
Taking care of the
Stuff
fence.
Too, but it would also put the new property owner kind of on notice
Yep.
that this was a protectable wetland resource area. Now, granted, this is an RDA, so, you know, it doesn't necessarily get recorded in the title against the property, but in most cases, you know, the signposts have usually served their purpose, as well as the fact that that is a relatively wild with herbaceous and brush and thorn bushes and stuff, so it actually isn't a place that, where they've got usable yard, I doubt very much they would seek to go in there too much anyway.
Yeah, right.
But it would prevent,
But it would hopefully
That
stop
stuff.
the,
Yeah, at least
yeah.
have them aware of it and,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
You think that'd be agreeable to your
I think
clients?
it would be, yes, yeah.
Seems like a sensible idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
And have you reviewed the, let's see, 9 proposed conditions in the memo?
I just saw it on my iPhone a little bit before I
Wanna
came
take
here,
a-
so.
Yeah, I've got it.
Want to take a look at the more readable size?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, so notification to this office when the sewage disposal is completed and stabilization. Okay.
Because this may not be completed under optimal conditions for receiving and stuff, now there is a requirement in there for a revised plan. Now, whether that revised plan is done as the as-built for the septic system, but the reason for that is to establish a record as to
So
where,
that no
where
cut.
those 3 signs
Yeah.
are and where the no cut, no disturbance area.
Right, I was just gonna mention that.
Yeah, that's what,
because-
normally that's what I would do, is when I go to do my certified as-built of the whole system, I could pinpoint exactly where those are with my transit.
That would be ideal.
Give those to you as an
Yeah.
as-built.
And then we have that as a record so that we know where they got put.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Rather than do another plan with that on it and another plan as an as-built, that would not be necessary.
Okay.
Great.
There is one little faux pas on the plan there. Haverhill Road is actually, seems to be where Main Street is,
Yeah,
and it's Haverhill Street. Would be, I believe, here,
you're right.
so.
I can correct that on the as-built too.
Well, again, yeah.
If that would be.
Just mentioning that,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not saying we need another plan.
right, but you might make a note of it, because it is confusing. When I
Yes,
first
yeah.
looked at this, I was a little disoriented by that. Because, you know, that's not the shape of the lot, and this, yeah, and I realized it must just be that.
There's your 3 roads that come together there, and I'm sort
You
of
do.
just showing 2, so.
Right, and that would be okay if this one were labeled correctly, but since
Correct.
it's not,
Yeah.
for those of us who live in this town and drive by that corner often, it's pretty wrong. It's pretty confusing. Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you wanna add, Ben? Anybody else? So I think what I would need is a motion to close the hearing and issue a negative determination with option number 3 with the stated 9 conditions from the memorandum incorporated. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against? And the motion carries.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Where did these come from? You?
Yes.
Yeah. Here's the- People sick this Christmas, don't you?
Mr. Smith, do you want me to send that permit to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Good, that would be good. Thank you.
Have a safe trip back, that's a long ways.
It is.
Yeah, it's a good ride.
About an hour and 25 minutes.
Glad we got you in the room.
It's now ski season though, they keep I-93 perfect.
Well, that's true.
Maybe you wanna-
2, 3.
I'd take 101 for me,
Right.
that's what I always do.
Well, that's true, if you go north, and I take 101, then go that
I just find 101 a more tolerable road than 93, it's 195.
way. Yeah.
One accident.
Well, it's 195
On
right now.
93, you don't get to the airport,
Yeah,
This time,
yeah, well, that,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, there is not a memo for the next item, it is administrative.
right,
And this
I see
is
the gentlemen are here.
yep, solely for a report of status to the commission, and I have
Right.
photographs taken from December 18th.
I think you visited the site, if I remember right, and sent us an email on an update. At least
Couple of
sent me
times,
one,
yes.
a couple of times possibly.
Uh,
Do you wanna come forward and
Yes,
address us? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, sir.
My name is Jack Rivers.
Jack, that's right.
And I'm here representing
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt in the, on the issue. I did have that letter that, in writing that he
thank you.
agreed to follow. I had it before in the machine when you were
Right.
there, but my memory is what I used to forget with. I guess we have placed the straw wattle along the edge of the disturbed areas and removed all of the material that had been placed in there by Mr. Schmidt. There is still the material out in the back end, in the,
The old
at the edge,
fenced-in-
the old fence and stuff.
Corral.
And I started to remove that using the tractor that he has. And we'd had so much rain and it got stuck in there, and I opted to back off and just leave it for the time being. The material I'm talking about has been in there for about 3 years now, I believe. Not that Mr. Schmidt is avoiding it, it's just as a practical matter. It is slightly lower coming away from that, so there should be no erosion issue of anything, and it's probably a much better time to get at it would be as we start reconstruction.
Yeah, this area, anyone on the commission here is slightly familiar. This is the area where the 45-foot trailer is parked and was previously cleared when the past owner, Mr. Lopes, had owned the property.
yes.
It was kind of used where a couple of derelict vehicles were parked. And it has an old existing fence line that provides at least two sides of a rectangle or square to defining the area. And it apparently had been scraped and material had been burned against that fence line prior to Mr. Schmidt owning the property. So that material isn't really so much the issue as various man-made debris and stuff that is scattered amongst that. And the topography, as Mr. Rivers is expressing, slopes down back away from the resource area and into this previously disturbed and cleared area. So really, we were more or less, I think, waiting for the survey to indicate to us whether the no-cut, no-disturbance area
Right.
came into that area, and therefore whether there were spots that were going to need some type of replanting or restoration effort, irrespective of, we knew the man-made debris needed to come out of there.
Right.
So it probably, so I concur that where the erosion control stopped and was installed, and where all the removal of fill and debris has occurred, that was the most pressing and the most recent disturbance activity that really did need to be addressed right away.
Right.
And it was addressed, and they have spread mulch to stabilize that area, so I think we're really, as terms of the next step, waiting for the surveyors.
Yes,
and
I spoke
for
to,
Mary Rimmer to.
Right, I spoke to Mary Rimmer this afternoon, and, of course, she's waiting for the engineers, the surveyor's plans depicting just where the trees are, and to work up her reconstruction program. And I spoke to the engineer, and he promises it for Friday, this coming Friday.
Right.
He'll have the plan done and send it directly to Mary, and she should be able to have that. So, however, we might schedule a
Well, we
time.
had discussed, tentatively that we thought the surveyor, in conjunction with Mary Rimmer, could possibly have something to submit to the office by January 15th. That was just a date that was picked
Right.
to try and get the information in prior to the commission's next meeting. And it was anticipated in our discussions out in the field that this would just be an opportunity to check in, make sure that the commission was satisfied with the progress, and also hear from Mr. Rivers, where things stood out on the site. So
Yeah,
we weren't really looking for finalization of restoration and planting plans tonight, but
Right.
just
Well,
checking.
I did check the intermittent stream and found when it was running and when it wasn't, and found no actual contamination of the stream at
Yeah.
all.
When I was
No
there, I noticed
silting
no
is-
sediment or
Yeah,
silting
no
going
sediment
on.
at all. So I do believe that we've protected the primary resource. And some BVW has been disturbed, clearly, and is staked out on the site. And or the wetlands are flagged on the site, and will be to supplement the plan. We have a hay mulch over all of the do not disturb area, as well as the disturbed wetland BVW. And then on the lower side, we protect it with the straw wattle running back 200 and some odd feet, and we have a silt, another length of silt fence at the end of that that we used, but primarily it's all protected by the straw wattle, and I placed some trees, branches, rotting, whatever, on top of the mulch, and should remain there, just in case you had some wash coming off the roof maybe or something. But it is quite flat, the whole area, and I don't believe that there is any, I don't believe there's any danger of further contamination of the site at this
It's
point.
pretty stable from
Yeah.
what you've observed, right?
Yes.
Out of curiosity, how was the hay spread?
By hand, just strewn out, take the flakes and strewn it out over the,
How many bales did you use?
uh,
16.
16 bales.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it was, and I had a laborer to do it for me, so.
Is that salt marsh hay or regular hay?
It's regular hay, the cheapest regular hay we could get.
You had a lot of deer in the area?
No, I was wondering that too. It's, I don't,
You may soon.
I may, yeah, and we certainly will keep an eye on it, and if they're hungry, are very hungry, we'll
Yeah.
replace the hay, not shoot the deer.
Well, it's all right with me if you shoot the deer.
Well,
I can eat them, right?
Don't say that on the record.
Don't say
Black
that.
card, and I think they're too close to the street.
Yeah.
Just comply with all applicable.
Few regulations on that.
If you see any deer, do them into.
Is it closed now? It's closed.
Well, it all seems like it's progressing in the right direction. I don't think, it doesn't sound like January 15th is a realistic date to have everything in order, but that's okay. We didn't really set it as that kind of a date.
yeah, well, for the plan, I really, the 20,
That was developed in discussions with Mary Rimmer
Yeah.
and his surveyor, so they actually thought that they could be
Right.
getting something into the office by then.
yeah,
That was in preparation for anticipating that this would be continued to the commission's meeting.
January 22nd.
the 22nd, I think that's.
You still think
very
that's realistic?
doable.
Okay. If he gets you the plan by this Friday as promised, then apparently Mary's gonna be able to
Yeah.
do what she needs to do pretty quickly. I'm sure she's already figured out the
Yeah,
general
well, she's-
concept, she just can't specify it until she sees where it needs to go.
Right.
Right, she actually staked out and, looked at and followed the surveyor after he'd established where
Mhm.
the previous wetland flags had been.
Yeah, we were there as a group, as the surveyor was doing his layout, so, there's good communication, and, we should be able to perform within the, anticipated dates. I say that, although, it'd be better if Mary was saying that,
Right.
because I
Understood.
don't know her situation.
Well, we can put it on for January 22nd. If they're not ready, then we'll just postpone
Continue
it to
to-
3 more weeks, yeah.
Okay.
But let's look, it sounds like the 22nd's realistic to hope for anyway.
I think so,
Okay.
yes. And of course, in the spring, do whatever.
Yep.
Further construction. I would ask if it is satisfactory to leave there's that, a little trailer in there and stuff in the back that, leave that until we're doing reconstruction. Does that make sense?
I think what.
Oh, is that abandoned one
Yeah.
that's kind of up on the
Yeah,
hummock or
yeah,
whatever?
the high up
Yeah,
in the
that's,
back.
that's not a threat to anything at
No,
this point.
and what you said makes
Yeah.
sense. Makes more sense to do that when the rest of the work is being done than
Yeah.
to do it right now.
Exactly, right.
Yep. I don't have any problem with that. Doesn't sound like you do either. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So January 22nd, we'll see you and your plans by the, we'll see your plans by the 15th, and we'll see you on the 22nd.
Very good.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your help.
Have a nice day.
We have a motion to continue this item until that date.
I need a motion to continue this, which is a continued enforcement order. Continue this matter to January 22nd, 2013. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good
Happy
evening.
New Year.
Motion carries.
Come on, Tyler.
Yeah.
Happy
We're-
New Year.
All right, Happy New Year. We're on time, how about that?
You actually typically are. I'm pretty good.
That's right.
Relative to other places you've been,
Pardon?
relative to other commissions
Oh,
you've been.
most certainly.
Well,
No
the later
comment.
you are in the evening, the later it gets.
The later it seems, right?
Yes, that too. All right, so you're back here on the CR.
Right.
Looking over the exchanges of emails and so forth, is it, well, let you start.
At this point, I believe that what you have in front of you is going to be the final, is going to be submitted to the EEOA. If I can, Brett and I had an exchange, I think on like the 20th or the 21st, that has the final red line of everything, and I'll go through them and tell you where the changes come from, either from Brent or from Judy Pickett, the town's legal counsel. And by the way, the town's legal counsel has not signed off, if you will, completely. She wants to have the opportunity to do another review, because the end of the year, I think, was a little taxing, and she just couldn't get through everything she needed to get through. So if you will, on page 1, she just asked me to bring forward the decision instead of having it later in the body of the conservation restriction, which is why it was, the language was struck in paragraph numbered 1 on page 2. And then on page 2, the very last sentence of that paragraph was something that Brent had asked that we add, that basically just said, listen, this is going to actually provide protection for the watershed area that drains into the Great Marsh, and of course we put that in. And then as you go through on page 3, there were just some comments, I believe maintain in perpetuity as open space. That was something that was asked by the planning board. And then I just hadn't stuck in the final dates for the baseline plan because I didn't want to change them after I had already submitted, because there had already been confusion, because I think what I had done was not, I don't know how many of you ever do attachments, but if you don't save them right before you do the attachment, those changes don't come through, and that actually happened to this one, because I had sent, it doesn't matter, but that actually happened, so I didn't want to make any changes that I hadn't already sent. But the dates are gonna be 12/19. That was actually the date on which the board, the planning board voted, and then those decisions were filed on the 21st with the town clerk. Then again, on page 4, under section A, Brenda asked me to add some just a little bit of language in here, and we did that, as you can see. Then when you turn to page 5, he had actually asked me to add some language with regard to saying that, you know, the Conservation Commission will have the right to create a situation where it says activities are prohibited without any concrete standard. And I don't know if you have the copies of the emails, but I cannot do that with an existing golf course. Any conservation restriction that I read that had the golf course did not have that language in.
So are you talking, just so I can
Counselor,
clear?
maybe skip line 8.
Oh, which-
No, hang on,
section?
hang on, let me just ask.
Well,
you.
that's the whole thing, Brent, that's why I'm talking about it in mass.
Okay, but what you just said, what Brent asked you to add that you can't add, is that in exceptions to otherwise prohibited uses be in the heading to be before 1?
Right. so he-
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so there's that, but there's also, or is there also additional language in 8 right above that?
There is, and that was because the language that he actually had asked for is up in 8,
Okay, yeah,
and as a prohibited use already. But my point to Brent was, look, I can't, as an attorney for an existing golf course, I can't say that it's going to be a prohibited activity if it's going to affect the current operation. I mean, what I can say is, they're not going to do anything that specifically violates any wetland requirements or any stormwater requirements, or, you know, creates the intrusion of an invasive species and things of that nature. But let's say a golf course is going to put chemicals on the property, all over it.
oh, understood.
Right, so
Why
that's the
can't-
only
there's
reason.
some reason we can't just leave it the way it was without, I'm not so much concerned that the language in B be added, I'm more concerned that the language in 8 is being added. I think the language in 8 somewhat tends to create an exception that swallows it up.
Oh, yeah, and then if you go to B, it basically says you can do all of these things, and it specifically says the operation of the golf course.
Right,
Yeah,
so
I-
the way it was, the original version, without any of this additional language, basically said, to oversimplify, you can't do much in the undisturbed area, you can do anything that's consistent with the golf course in the disturbed area,
Disturbed.
right?
Yeah,
Isn't that what we're trying to do
and I
here?
can do that. I think, you know, the reason why I even put the language is I wanted when we had a conversation, I wanted to make it abundantly clear that no matter what, that I can continue to operate the golf course. I can strike the language, but I still can't add anything in the bottom that says, as far as the uses, that limits my ability to operate the golf course.
Okay.
Yeah, I could strike the unless in the beginning paragraph,
Yeah.
I absolutely can. But I
You
still
can't
feel it's
include the
incumbent upon me to tell you that that is within the rights as specifically stated herein. Because despite the fact that it says prohibited activities, when you read the next paragraph, in the
Correct.
next, it basically says most certainly that I can do any use that is
Yeah.
required
Oh,
to
yeah.
operate the golf course. So I can strike it, but that's not eliminating my ability to do things that allow me to continue the operation.
Yeah,
of
the
golf
only
course.
distinction that I would see in that is
Uh-huh.
you can do them in the disturbed areas.
Oh, yeah, oh, only, I
But see,
can't touch them.
if you put it up in 8, it suggests to me you can do them anywhere.
But that's, again,
And that.
I can strike that additional language.
Okay.
I just didn't wanna strike it without having a conversation with you.
I get it, I understand.
That was all.
Yeah,
That's my
Well,
problem.
it got inserted without a conversation with us.
well, right.
Again, Brent, the third time I'm gonna say it, it was a mistake, and there was other language added that you had asked for that hadn't been reflected because I didn't save a document. It was a procedural glitch and my fault, and I take full responsibility, but in no way was that done in an untoward
No,
fashion.
I'm sure, I understand. So what you're saying is you're happy to take out the additional language in 8 as long as you're not required to add the additional language in B?
B.
Okay. So why don't we go on through the rest of the?
Absolutely.
I think that's the only area where there's gonna be much discussion, but let's just make sure there aren't any other considerations.
I don't think so, because I added all the language, and if I had accepted it because there were changes that had been accepted before, like if you look on page 10, there's some changes in there, basically change 24 consecutive months. You know, because remember how we were saying, if it's, this is something that the planning board had asked for, because it was kind of odd, because it said, okay, you have access, and then I said on all cart paths and trails, but quite frankly, you have access all over it.
Yeah.
So that was why that had to be changed.
I'm sorry, this, on our formatted document, are we talking about
Page 10.
number 2,
3, when you see the red line?
under B?
Roman numeral
Yeah.
6,
Yes.
subsection 3,
Three.
right?
Yeah, on page 10.
That's
Right,
on
I
On
think you're
page
looking at
7,
page
I've
7,
got
right.
number
Oh.
2, where the word consecutive was inserted.
Oh, I mean, that was
And also
not
page
really
8.
substantial, so I'm sorry, I just,
Yeah, yeah. No,
they
that's,
just, see how it says residential parcel, it should have said restricted area, I'm sorry, I just
Yeah.
didn't go over that because
right.
the material change was, you know, the next one was in 10, and,
Oh, yeah, that one, residential
That's the
parcel,
material
restricted
change.
area, you definitely wanted to change that one.
right, and this, yeah, it was a little odd, wasn't it? I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna restrict the restricted parcel, that's brilliant, Joe. And that was just a typo, and then in 3 though, that is a material change, because not on all cart paths, but everywhere.
Right.
And then I think you had actually asked me this, and then the planning board definitely asked me this, to say that you have the right to maintain, but not the obligation, because neither you nor the planning board wanted to force the town into a situation where you had to do anything.
Yeah, I don't know if we did say that, but it's a good point.
See, I thought, for some reason,
Well,
Brent, did you
Blind
bring
Planning
it?
did.
Somebody did, yeah,
It's a good
somebody
point.
brought it up. And that really was it, I just added for some reason, it was weird, the form didn't have a signatory provision, so I just put in where, and witness it up. And the reason why you say under seal is so that you don't have any of the, limited requirements of the contract, so, yeah, that's
In
fine.
the blank page number 15, that's going to be eliminated. correct?
Oops, let's see, yeah, I don't even know, I think probably when I did a page break to separate.
I didn't bother to print it out for you folks because my paper consumption quota has risen exponentially with this particular item. And so on pages where it only went from the change was 2012 to 2013, I didn't necessarily
Yeah.
believe that we were going to have a
No,
substantive
that's fine.
discussion about that.
So it seems to me that the only matter requiring any further discussion is what we were starting to discuss a few
Yeah,
minutes ago.
page
Paragraph
five.
8 and the exceptions to prohibited uses right below that.
Mhm.
My view, which I think I probably already made clear, is if you take out all of that additional language, I'm content with it. I
Okay.
think,
I have no
I
problem.
think we're adequately protected, the conservation interests. My main objection was to the language in 8, not to the need for additional language in the exceptions to prohibited uses.
Yep,
That's just
fine.
my view though, so any other commissioners certainly should express their views. Mr. Turner?
No more comments.
No more comments. Mr. Bayside?
Well, yes, again, I concur and brought that to Doug's attention, had a discussion because the area does have upland areas which are not subject to our legal responsibilities under any of the other bylaws that have been cited, and so therefore, number 8, without that qualifier that someone could just say it's necessary for the continued operation of the golf course, I believe. And again, the commission is made up of 7 folks. They all have to come to a consensus about whether something is materially inconsistent with, you know, the qualities, not just one of them say, oh, we need to raise
sure.
monarch butterflies there and they can't keep mowing the milkweed or something like that, so.
Yeah.
The other thing you may have seen recently in the paper that I think it's the town of, is it Newbury or whatever, where they discovered a parcel with an agricultural restriction has been leased to a model airplane remote control flying
It's
club.
West Newbury.
West Newbury.
Yeah,
Which,
it's a farm. I mean, it's
it's
an
a
orchard.
farm, which
Yeah,
is,
it's an active orchard, but as farmers will, we
Which
lease
none
a
of
section of
the,
it out to a model airplane
the-
club.
The people holding the restriction, i.e.
Right.
the town, never were approached, and the state was never approached. that-
Conversion,
Whether
too.
that would be an allowed agricultural activity. So not to say that the golf course would all of a sudden develop little remote controlled airplanes for dropping golf balls as hole in one type thing. But we wanna make sure if there is some kind of, you know.
It actually turns out that that's not the most user-friendly activity on property, that neighbors tend to dislike it. It
Yes.
makes a very annoying buzzing noise, and Judy knows this well
I
because.
can't even, what is that, what is that?
It's remote controlled airplanes.
Like
They
big
have
or
a
little ones?
Marvelous little.
Apparently
plane.
big ones, they
It's
said
on,
6-foot wingspan.
I was gonna say,
Something
I've
bigger.
seen
Hillside.
big remote control, I didn't know that kind of thing,
Mhm.
like unmanned vehicles kind of, you know?
The whole
Drones.
range.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
The,
years,
this all used to happen in Rowley,
on Hillside.
across from your street, right
You
across
could
from my
sit in
house,
his
before they built my house.
front porch and watch.
Yeah, and it was this very large,
Commanding.
unused farmer's field, quite flat, and that's the topography they needed. So the owner of it, just, I think he leased it to them, and I don't know if he even charged them any money, but he let
I
them
don't
do
think
it
so.
for the longest time.
Oh,
A bunch of nice
Then they
old
went to
guys
West
that.
Newbury.
And then then he built houses on it, so they had to find a new home, and apparently this is where they went.
Even before those
Interesting.
houses were built, I lived
You did.
2 large parcels south of that whole field.
Mhm.
And
You
those
could
planes
go.
would get out of control and they'd buzz over the homes. And they'd crash in the woods behind my house, and I lived in mortal fear of one of them landing on my roof and setting the thing on fire. And,
Is there
on
gasoline
multiple
powered?
occasions that those things happened.
Yeah. They're,
And so it's dangerous, and on
They
top
carry a
of
little
that,
fuel tank.
some of the
gas
people-
powered.
some of the people
Wow.
who do this are aeronautical cowboys, and you'd get planes from New Hampshire jets would buzz the field periodically because their relatives were out there flying on that particular day. Unauthorized things, I mean, I've seen and heard it with my own eyes, years, and you know, it's more than just a nice pastoral little plaything for kids.
Well, and you have a lot
Oh,
of
it's not
airports around
pastoral,
you, you have
that's for
Beverly
sure.
and you have North
You
Andover
can't do
close
this in
enough too.
airports, you're not allowed to, because they're not aircraft.
No,
They're
but
not
what I mean
licensed
is
aircraft.
buzzing you, it's easy to do.
Yeah, you're right,
Very.
Beverly's not far, right, but you know, you're from Middleton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I do a lot of work over at the Lawrence Airport, so I know.
Okay, yeah. All right, so
I have
with that, yeah, go ahead.
Just a teeny tiny
Please.
glitch.
Yeah.
On page 9, under number 5, indemnification, we have number 1, we have no number 2, but we do have a number 3.
Oh.
Aren't you attentive?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it's.
Two is missing, or three should be.
Makes it a little bit more sensible.
Yeah, thank you.
Good catch, Judy.
Copy
So
editing
you had
skills.
said that Judy Pickett is still, hasn't,
Yeah.
she's just,
Well, Mary, I
just
think
backed out.
yeah, and I think we had talked about it last time, either last time or the time before when I was here, and we said, should we send it out to her? And my advice was, why pay twice? Let's send it when the EEO comes back, because they're gonna have so many changes that she's gonna have opportunity and will need to relook at it after that, because
Mhm.
there'll be enough changes that
Yeah,
it'll
I
be,
thought that's
it'll be
what
a different
we were gonna
document.
do, yeah.
But the planning board, because what we did is to ensure that the restriction carries through in the permits,
Mhm.
we actually had conservation restrictions within the body of the permit. I think Brent saw them, and that was why. So they got actually incorporated into that decision, and so Judy
So
looked.
Judy looked at it.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. But she's going to get, another look at it, obviously.
Right.
And the way the conservation restrictions that worked in the decision is they were, if you will, summaries, because obviously I know that the terms are going to change somewhat, and that this document controls, the conservation restriction controls.
You're right, right.
And then
Okay.
also, I still need to submit, like, I have, Rich Williams preparing the final, baseline
Baseline
report
post.
for you with some of the new photos, some of the new information, it has the topo in it. So I have other stuff that I still need to submit, and we have to do that. I had talked to Irene right before Christmas, and she did not even want me to send in a draft. She said, don't bother, I'm too busy. Once you get your decision recorded, send it to me, because I'm not looking at it before.
This is Irene at the state?
Yeah, I read
Yeah, I
the
agree, double on that.
I think I sent you, did I send you a copy of that email too? I know I sent it to
I
Katrina.
think so, yes. You did it.
Okay. So, can we ask you to give us a clean copy for our final review?
Of course.
Or for our file, for both, just so that we know exactly what it is we ended up with here.
Mhm. And I'm gonna give you obviously a full package of what I submit.
Yeah,
Because,
okay.
with the baseline, everything, and that, again, is not your final version. You have
Correct.
every right to
Understood.
comment, yeah.
And I'm just thinking about procedurally, since that's not a final version, we're really just informally reviewing it and giving you our input at this stage. So I think you have our input.
And then once you get that.
Substantively,
We need to come,
Yeah.
needs to come back after it goes through EOEA's filter and
and through,
Jill looks at that.
and Judy
And
does
then
her
if
thing
there's,
again.
the
Yeah.
ability for,
Okay.
for Judy Pickett then to weigh in at that point in time. And then it would need to come back, for us to basically concur with all of those changes and actually then vote on this document as well as vote on directing me to conduct the field inspection and to then extend the municipal certification that's asked for in the application package that goes to the
Right.
state.
Just remind me, at some point the selectmen get it?
After us.
That's after we do that, we
After
send
we
it
do
to
that,
them,
it goes to
'cause-
the selectmen.
Cause they're the ones who have to actually
They're-
accept the property.
Well, no, they basically sign off,
They- that's
again,
what I
on
mean,
the
they have
CR
to
document, just
correct.
as the commission
Their
signs off.
signatures, yeah,
Yeah,
as well.
they're the actual, they're the entity,
Right.
Chief
but they're doing it
administrative
through
body
you.
for the town.
Exactly.
Right, yeah,
Um,
okay, but they don't see it till the very end.
And-
Correct.
And honestly, they never even make a comment.
No, of course not,
Yeah.
that's what we're for. and
Exactly.
Judy's for, yeah.
Exactly, so, and my guess is you won't see anything or hear back from me for 3 to 4 months.
That's what I was gonna say, and therefore, I don't suppose it makes any sense to put this down as an agenda item, because it's so far out.
Oh, she won't even, I won't even get comments back from her, but
No.
2 to 3 months, and that's my
Yeah.
experience
This
typically.
being an administrative item, as long as we appropriately post it and.
Right, 48 hours is all you really need
Yeah.
for open meeting,
Yep, no, that's fine, so we'll just leave it to you to
and I'll follow up.
get yourself on our agenda whenever you've got something.
And just to let you know, because it's always nice to know these things, that I am, under the terms of the decision, I have to get this approved, because I only have a certain number of building permits I can get. before I get a fully approved CR. Obviously, they didn't wanna hold me up because it could be 8 to 9 months before it's final.
Right.
But they also didn't want me to have unfettered ability to develop.
You can't
So-
finish the project without.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I can only get 6 building permits, 6 occupancy permits, excuse me, before I have to have that CR approved. So just to let you know, there
Okay.
was a control mechanism in place.
Okay, any other comments by commissioners?
There's also the little thing on stormwater management thing.
Right.
What's that?
Richie's gonna actually apply, I think in the next week or so.
What was that, stormwater management permit?
Mhm.
Oh, okay,
Right, Rich Williams is actually
He's
preparing
working on
that,
that.
yeah.
okay.
And then we'll be back before you, but then, as you said, during the interim, I'll at least be working with Brent and let him know what the status is and give him updates periodically. And when I get the responses back from Irene, I'll just CC Brent until we come to a final, and,
Yeah,
but
okay.
anyway, in the
Yeah.
interim,
It's
you'll
helpful
get a
if you
full
keep
support.
us in that loop so that we see the progress
Of
of the
course.
process, but I think you would anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely,
All right,
perfect.
all right. Anything else? No? Good. All right,
Okay.
thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thank you, have a great new year.
You too.
See
Off
you
to a
soon.
good start.
Hope we see you in 2013.
Yes, oh, I hope so as well, before it gets warm, I'm hoping too.
I would suggest that the commission just entertain a motion to continue this with an open-ended
Yeah, all right, that makes
continuance as
sense.
discussed
Procedurally.
until contacted by the applicant.
Do I have a motion to continue this on an open-ended basis until contacted by the applicant?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? All against?
Take care.
Bye-bye. Carries.
Thank you.
Oh, that was easier than I thought. Take it all out, go back to where we were. All right, now we have a big pile of the same things. Right?
Well, there's some little differences in there, but yeah.
Well, we're not, probably not expecting anybody here on this.
I would say because no one is here, that,
Sometimes, what's his name, Fred Ford comes, and
Yeah,
sometimes he doesn't.
yeah, and here again, I already had a conversation with Mr. Georgialakis about the few items on here,
You did, okay.
so I think they're incorporated into what I suggested, but let me just pull the first file, it might be easier just to kind of do these one at a time.
It would be, yes, yeah. Right. So the first one is 21, right? No, 19.
15. I hope it's 15 Oak Ledge Circle.
Yes.
Oh, I'm looking at the lot numbers, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 15.
So actually,
15, here we go. Okay. So just for the record here, this is the 830 item, a request for a certificate of compliance, 630520, 15 Oak Ledge Circle, map 23, parcel 19, lot 24, Wild Pasture LLC.
yeah, this is order of conditions 63-520. This particular lot actually on first off, it's a 5-sided lot, and on 3 of the sides, it abuts conserved open space that is restricted by a CR. And so it's effectively stabilized. It had, the photograph actually shows the small little rill, I guess you might call it, it's not really I don't think something that I can barely put my foot in as being a gully, so to speak, but and that's going to be taken care of. We've already had a discussion with Mr. Georgialakis, and that'll be effectively repaired and stabilized probably by the end of the week, I would imagine. And there was one sign which happens to show up in that picture. They initially had been temporarily put on 2x4s with a pointed end and just kind of driven into the ground just to let folks know where the conserved open space was.
most, all the other ones, in fact, there's, in the background here, one, if they look real carefully, you can see one of the signs mounted on a solid 4x4 post that goes into the ground enough distance to hold it up permanently, but apparently this one didn't get changed over to the 4x4 posts, and that will be done shortly. So I did ask for a revision to the plans because the submitted plan missed depicting one of the signs. Surprisingly enough, it missed depicted one that was on a 4x4 post that was very substantially anchored and picked up the one that was falling over, so I don't know what that was about. So there are 3 conditions that should be considered perpetual and ongoing, number 19, 21, and 39. So I said, if the commission concurs that the identified issues are minor and can be quickly remedied, you may wish to consider a follow-up field visit to confirm the signpost replacement and the minimal trough repair, I called it, prior to permit issuance. And if you don't have any other concerns, you may wish to consider the issuance of a complete certificate of compliance with the ongoing conditions, contingent upon a field verification and receipt of revised as-built plans. And I estimated a 10-day period for that to be accomplished.
Seems reasonable. Any comments by commissioners? No comments? Let's see, this would be a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions as indicated, contingent upon field verification and receipt of as-built plans within 10 days. Do I have a motion?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? The motion carries. So the only revision is actually just the posts, right?
Yeah.
There's a lack of a legend,
Right.
something missing on
Yeah, that's on all of them, but I didn't request revised plans because of that, because their plans are fairly well labeled, and
Right.
so it's pretty clear what the various
Seems
things
so,
are.
yeah. So he just needs to
It's
put
just
in the
me being
posts.
kind of nudgy, just saying, you know, what happened to the legends, 'cause they had legends originally, so I think they just didn't paste them in, or however they did them.
Do that later.
With the cats on
that later off.
But getting the posts in is significant, so, okay. So that's that.
Oh, okay.
And then this is the 835 item, a new request for a certificate of compliance 630519 for 19 Oak Ledge Circle, map 23, parcel 19, lot 23, Wild Pasture LLC.
Most all these lots, in regards to their filing, they chose to file orders of conditions. In most cases, we just had grading and, you know, the changing of the grade and depositing of loam topsoil and seeding for a lawn that went into the 100-foot buffer zone. None of the structures, the fields, because leaching fields, because they're all new construction, were all outside buffer zone. All the houses had crushed stone infiltration trenches for the roof runoff. This particular lot, I don't believe had any concerns at all.
No.
And
Like
so
this.
therefore, I'm recommending, if you wish to issue a complete certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions, number 19, 21, and 30.
38, right?
I'm sorry, 38.
Yep. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? And the motion carries.
BB?
Right.
Oh,
This is the issue with this change.
alright, I got it, sorry.
I stopped that one.
Yeah. That's a different order. Bread and breakfast. Spaced on that one, sorry.
For some reason, that particular order of conditions didn't have, or one of them had it as number 39, and I carried it over to this one and then realized that all the rest of them were number 38 in the orders. And that crept into there.
This is the 840 item on the agenda, a new request for a certificate of compliance, 630518 for 27 Oak Ledge Circle, map 23, parcel 19, lot 20, Wild Pasture LLC. So this is, let's see, lot, number 27, lot 19.
This lot and the next lot have had their lawns established, but they're very new. And so I noted on here, the vegetative cover has effectively stabilized the site, but very recently sprouted, so the topsoil is still not well compacted. I could tell this as I tried to walk down to inspect the back, and I started, sinking in a little bit, and I'm like, uh-oh, I don't know.
Making a mess out of their lawn.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I found firmer ground to get down there. But, so I made a request to Mr. Georgialakis, and he actually concurred with me. Normally, we want to have the erosion control removed, especially the silt fence, because it falls over, it starts then killing any ground cover there, and it
you
just
run
ends
off
up being a mess.
issues like we had on that first lot, you get a gully next to it. or
Yeah,
something.
as well as it also negatively impacts the little small mammals that are trying to get underneath the snow. They hit that and it's like hitting the Berlin Wall. They have a real hard time with it too, so. Anyway, in this particular case though, because things aren't really settled, even though, I forgot to have a picture available for you, but the grass is well sprouted, good coverage and everything, but it's just, everything hasn't settled. And so I was uncomfortable, and Mr. Georgialakis agreed that it'd be much better to leave the erosion control in place and not remove it until next spring. Now, I don't know how the commission feels about that. This project is still covered under a larger order of conditions that governed the construction of the subdivision roadway, the stormwater management facilities, et cetera. So if you're not giving up all oversight over this parcel, if you choose to issue a complete certificate of compliance, we would still have the ability under the order of conditions that governs the whole project site to require the removal of the erosion control before issuing a certificate of compliance for that particular order. So
How many
I
houses
recommend
have
it.
been built out there so far? I guess we could almost count them up, right?
Yeah, well, I believe the first loop, Arrowhead Circle, I think that has been fully developed. The whole outer circumference of it, I think, has been all built. Then the short connecting roadway that leads to this, which is called Wild Pastures Lane, I think that has maybe 2 lots on it that haven't been sold. And then Oak Ledge Circle here, that has got at least 2 more
Okay.
lots. I'm not sure how the corner is done where Wild Pasture Lanes comes into this, so I don't know if there's another 3rd lot there or whether it's one of the lots that I'm
So there's
thinking
at least 4 unstarted buildings on unsold lots.
Right.
So, yeah.
None of these are under specific issued order of conditions, but they're all still within the subdivision that we govern
Yeah.
with the overall.
Well, no, the reason I asked was to get a sense of how long it's going to be before they're looking for a complete certificate, and it's gonna be a while
Yeah.
if they have 4 lots left to sell. So that seems, what you suggest makes sense, it seems to me, is that and they're always very cooperative.
Oh,
Because
yes.
if we say, take out that erosion control on lot, you know, at number 27, I'm sure they'd just get it done.
Right, and I believe the new owners, because apparently one of these recent, a house right next to, these next two that we're considering right now, I believe it's already been sold because there was someone there, you know, checking it out and starting to look at, you know, cleaning the windows up and everything, so. The only issue with this lot is the second point, and that is that the open space signage, apparently they forgot to put a sign in the center of the back boundaries of these, because signage was supposed to be spaced 60 feet apart. Now, in this particular lot, it ended up being 140 feet apart, and the next lot that we look at is 120, and 2 of the signs ended up being like within 25 feet of each other. So I think something just happened, and either somebody didn't understand where they were supposed to put the signs in correctly and somehow grouped them next to the side boundary lines instead of just doing the 60-foot spacing and going across.
And you talked to him about that?
I talked to him, and of course, I said to him, I said that, you know, we just want to see the signs evenly spaced apart. I said, I'm not gonna tell you to put an additional sign in if you want to just reconfigure the spacing on these so that they're like 60 or 70 feet apart or whatever. And he goes, nah, it'd be easier if I just put a third sign
Exactly.
in the center of each of the next 2 lots. So I said, okay, fine. So
More
there's,
cost effective.
so that still needs to be done,
Okay.
and then I, of course, say that the plan should be revised to show
where they are.
that signage, yeah.
Yeah,
We've
right.
got a record of it.
We gotta do that, but, yeah, okay.
So I did make a suggestion then that, you know, if you didn't have any concerns about considering issuing a complete certificate of compliance, that it be with the ongoing conditions 19, 21, and 38, and contingent upon field verification and receive a revised as-built plan within 10 days.
Makes sense to me. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All against? Motion carries.
Oh, and I did also request, and I am supposed to be receiving a letter from Mr. George Olakis, confirming and stating that commitment to, in the spring, to remove the erosion control. I just
Oh, okay.
wanted to,
Just to make sure the records are kept.
yeah, I
we
just
don't
wanted to
forget
make
about it.
sure that that was,
Okay.
you know, stated in the record, since if we were gonna close this out, I wanted it to be very upfront about the fact that we made a commitment to take out the erosion control.
Sometime in the spring, right? Not necessarily.
Well, right, whenever things get firmed back
Yeah,
up
yeah.
again, I mean, because that's the other thing, you know, these folks that take possession of these houses aren't gonna want, well, the lawn's squishy, again, big goober footprints going down there, bringing it back lawn to haul out the hay bales and erosion control, so.
Well, you say in your memo, the end of spring, that's what,
Right.
Right.
beginning of summer even.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah, anticipating somewhere in the late April, May time period when, you know, hopefully the snow is all melted and spring flowers are starting to bloom and the ground is firm.
Right, so this one,
This is the last
This is
one.
the 8:45 item on the agenda, the request for a certificate of compliance, 630517. This is for 29, excuse me, 29 Oak Ledge Circle, map 23, parcel 19, lot 19, Wild Pasture, LLC. And this, looking at your memo, Brent, looks very much like the one we just.
Yeah,
seen.
basically I'm gonna say ditto to what I discussed before, except the spacing of the signage was a little smaller, but still nowhere near the requested 60 feet. It was double that, 120 feet.
Okay.
So if the commission would, again, consider possible issuance of a complete certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions number 19, 21, and 38, contingent upon field verification and receipt of revised as-built plans within 10 days.
And do I have such a motion?
So move.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
All against? The motion carries.
Where is this property?
This is almost directly across from where Danielle's was.
Okay, back those two houses back in the woods.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
all right,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
That have basically have the common driveway, even though they were designed with driveways that were going to be twins, Siamese twins at the entrance. They really just did one
Yep.
driveway, treating it as a common one going in there.
Right.
We have a long outstanding enforcement relationship with Mr. Gear in regards to this lot. Just kind of a quiet thing, but we actually recorded it at the registry. So I believe in my comment memo, I stated that that there is the obligation for our $75 recording fee to be reimbursed to the commission. The erosion control of the silt fence has not been removed and needs to be taken out appropriately. When I visited the lot on the 28th, it was still, the ground hadn't frozen at that time, because I visited the lot prior to snowfall so I could see things. It's still very doable in terms of taking it out. Even if it has frozen in the ground, one could pull it up and slice it off with a utility knife if it was too firmly embedded, but a lot of it I was able to just kick up with the toe of my boots and pull up out of the ground. There had been three, in regards to the no cut, no disturbance area, there have been 3 bounds installed at the entrance to the driveway when only 2 were required. They roughly correspond to where the no cut, no disturbance comes in. And basically
based on the terrain and the topography, no one would probably want to do anything down there. So the fact that there are 3 of them, and actually, in a sense, is going to indicate a larger width protected area than is really there. But there is the issue that there still is a little bit of scattered man-made debris in this wetland area that was supposed to be picked up. I wasn't trying to do an exhaustive search when I walked through there, but I specifically did come, and also I did come to work in Raleigh on Friday to accomplish these site visits once I knew that snow was in the forecast, so I would be able to see the ground conditions and be able to report adequately to you. So I hope you don't mind. I worked Friday afternoon and just left early on Monday.
I hope you don't mind working Friday afternoon. Thank you.
Well, again, I wanted us to be able to,
Sure.
you know, to.
Well, you're right.
To react to these.
We got snow now, and we may very well have snow for the next 3 or 4 months. Very possible, so. Yeah, so, okay.
So we do, you know, we do have a little bit, basically, I guess if I had to guess, I would say maybe 3 to 4 hours of work to pull up the remnant silt fence that's out there, gather the bag of scattered debris. One might be able to still tell where the little bit of it is.
The debris consists of what? Man-made debris?
Oh,
Wood?
gosh, I found the chrome, a chrome
Okay.
piece that may have been along the front or the side wall of, I don't know, I'm not real good at cars, but, you know, it's
Yeah.
kind of the wide, 3 to 4 inch wide chrome piece that you used to see sort of halfway down the door panel of a lot of cars or whatever. I found one of those. I found some type of plywood that may have had some vinyl stuff attached to it that was roughly a foot wide by 3 feet long, that the plywood was kind of rotting away, but the vinyl was still there. Someone had tried to make some kind of decorative backboard thing or something. I saw a plastic tea kettle and a few other, again, very small amount of material, but enough that I couldn't say, oh yeah, they cleaned this all up and it's fine. You know, half a 30-gallon bag of trash if you.
Is it out in the middle?
It's just, it's scattered through here.
Oh. Yeah.
If I remember from our initial site visit here, most of the debris that needed picking up, and there was a lot of it, and bigger stuff than what Brent's talking about, was over on this side of the property.
Yeah, actually,
And
over in here.
We didn't pay much attention over here, so I think this is sort of after discovered stuff, and he either didn't understand that everything should be picked up on the lot or whatever. Does he live in this, on one of these homes?
Well,
does not, right?
when, I can't remember the gentleman's name, was it like Brunel or whatever, who was leasing the other
Yeah, it was a different person.
building here, was a different person. But we worked with him through the same thing in terms of getting a certificate of compliance, and he ended up taking up his silt fence by himself.
Mhm.
And then I actually helped him a little bit with the debris that was in the wetlands area at the front. Again, it really was just a couple hour hand pickup job or whatever, but yeah, it was a lot more rusty stuff, pieces of barrels, and a lot more stuff was on his side.
Is that the fence coming in place?
He told me, and actually gave me the contact information to get in contact with Mr. Gear. At that time, he said that Mr. Gear's mother was residing in the building, but I think she went down to Florida in the winter or something like that. There doesn't appear to be anyone living in the house right now. Doesn't appear to be
First one or the
occupied.
second one?
The one that we're talking about tonight,
Here.
542.
You mean this one right here?
Yep.
Yes.
There's a car often parked right there. I
Oh.
see when I go by.
Okay, well, then maybe there is. I mean, the day I went there, you know, we had a little dusting of snow, whatever, there were no tracks, and I couldn't see any evidence that, you know, it looked like the house had been lived in, but it didn't look like anyone was there currently. But that, you know, I was only there for one brief little 20 to 25 minutes.
Well, in any event, certainly we should get our $75 back.
Right.
And the silt fence and the trash, need to be removed, but that's really it, so.
Right.
um,
So basically, I'm recommending, because we really we have the substantial information that we would normally look for. The plans are pretty good. We've got a shaded no cut, no disturbance area. The fact that they show where the erosion control was, isn't really anything we need to document for posterity, but at least they know where it was, so they need to be guided into where to look to take it out.
To
That's
take it out, yeah.
where it was. This has been a long, slow process. After contacting Mr. Gear, these plans showed up in, I'm sorry,
March, yeah.
yeah, March or June. June, I think I actually received them. And at that time, I believe Mr. Gear's son dropped them off to me. But I still hadn't actually gotten the request for a certificate of compliance form or the permission to enter, because the order of conditions had expired a long time ago. And so I had given those to the person who I was told was his son with a stamped self-addressed envelope, and they didn't show up until November 29th. So anticipating that anything we ask for, it may be quite a while before it happens, I didn't suggest any type of contingency on this.
Yes,
I figured if the commission chose to just make the decision issuing the certificate of compliance, that make it contingent upon the few things that materially need to be done, taking up the silt fence, picking up the little bit of debris, and reimbursing us for the $75 recording fee, that if that stuff gets done, whenever it gets done, it'll be fine. But it's very clear what those tasks are, and they're not necessarily related to environmental protection or to adding anything further to this plan. I think the plan
Yeah. Yeah.
still gives us appropriate information for the public record.
Right. Agreed. And whenever they get around to doing those three
Whenever
things
they
is
get
when they
around
can
to
get
doing
their
those
certificate.
things,
Okay. Makes sense to me. Anyone else have any concerns? Okay, then I think I would want a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions 19 and 88. Contingent upon payment of $75 reimbursement and field verification of the silt fence removal and the removal of the remaining debris. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? And the motion carries. When did we start that case? That was a while ago.
Yes. Excuse me.
December 2010. I don't know what that means.
yeah, the enforcement order we finally issued February
2004?
28th, 2011. Recorded it January 2012.
Is that all? Poison. Bite.
Slow but sure progress.
Okay, and finally,
That might be our last visit to the cell tower lot. Looking at things that have been going on for a while.
Yes, but we have, here again, we have progress, thanks to the desire for Sprint to obtain a permit from the planning board. And depending on how the commission feels about this, as I tried to explain in my memo, really have just the question as to whether the commission is satisfied that the jute erosion control blanket that's been utilized on a portion of the site that they supplemented and loamed. I think they may have also seeded it, although by the time they finally seeded it, there was no chance of germination. So I have a feeling that it's gonna be small mammal food this winter for those seed gathering moles and voles and other things that are still active underneath the snow. So it probably would need the spreading of some grass seed come spring. It is municipal property though, so we wouldn't be, totally doing anything really bad by going out there and hitting it with some seed, which probably would not be very expensive. But it's just a question of whether the commission feels that does accomplish stabilization. The other main things in terms of getting the mesh from the bark mulch sock, that's all been appropriately removed. The stray piece of rebar that was sticking out of the ground, that got removed. And so really the site looks very good and is stabilized.
Well, it's very flat there, right?
Yeah, there's
I remember a picture you showed
extremely
us last time you went out.
extremely slight slope over there, and again, the dominant overstory tree is oak, so you've got a lot of good, those persistent oak leaves forming a nice blanket or mulch that wouldn't allow anything to go very far anyway. But where they've used the erosion control blanket, there isn't, I would say there isn't a chance that anything would be mobilized there where they did the loaming, so.
Seems like it's enough to me. You disagree?
And I did hear from Mr. McCluskey, he is sending a second as-built plan to me, so that I will have two for the file. I just like to have two.
So, I'm looking for a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance, ongoing condition number 43, contingent upon receipt of that second as-built plan within 10 days.
So moved.
And a second? Any questions there, Bob? Do you-
No.
Second.
Second by Judy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all against. And the motion carries.
This is probably good for rent for that, do you know?
I don't honestly know. I think I was told that it was $3,000 or $4,000. I don't know whether that's a year, a quarter, a month, or.
I think it's more than that. It's like a quarter or something, it's like 12,000 or something.
That might be.
Sam would know. Sam was not here, it's the kind of thing he knows.
Call it Sam.
Sam.
Why, you got a piece of property you wanna put one of those up on?
All right. Take them all down. Do away with cell phones. Back to horse and buggies.
Just a long leash.
When do we have in town? 2? 3?
Well, technically 3. There's Verizon has a wireless installation on the water tower on Prospect Hill. We have down by Rowley Salvage or Auto Junkyard there's one there, and then there's this tower. Those are
Those are the three that I know of. We did have a request permitting for one at Chickadee Hill Farm, whatever, but I don't believe they ever proceeded with it. Well, the kind of unfortunate thing, though, is I think the Permit Extension Act has kept the order valid, but I don't know that there's any interest in
We
actually.
essentially signed off on that, I think, and the town was trying to get the installation switched to somewhere else, a competing piece of property, the whole thing fell apart for some reason.
Where's Chickadee Hill?
On Central Street, almost all the way down.
Yeah, almost opposite where Lane.
I think they have a good for sale sign at the end of the drive.
For sale sign?
For wood.
Oh, yes. Do
Good
Christmas
for
trees
and Christmas trees.
Snow plowing.
lobsters in the summertime.
Yeah, it's probably the same thing.
Closer than what?
So if.
Brings us
About a quarter of a
Excuse
mile
me,
up from
to the end of our
from the
specific items, so that brings us to status reports, permits, and enforcement.
Well, actually, I have some administrative items to
Or
request
those, yep.
for the commission's consideration. Have an issued emergency certification for Mr. Henry Wilson, who resides at 386 Main Street, to allow the replacement of his septic system, because his was in failure with surface discharge of.
That's not good.
Yeah, not good.
Can't wait
And
for
actually,
release for
there's actually two emergency certifications, one for the soil evaluations, because that's how we would normally do the permitting. And then the second one is for the actual installation of the replacement system, which I believe is being put in now or as soon as the weather conditions. The excavator was moved there, I believe, on Thursday of last week. So if the commission would so consider, and we have received all the plans and documentations that we would normally have required if this had been done through the permitting process. And the conditions that were issued on the emergency certifications were the same conditions. I've been out, inspected the erosion control and verified that it's been put in effectively. All the work is being done on previously maintained lawn.
Right.
This is on Main Street?
Yes. Yeah.
Past? where?
Well, it's past Railroad Avenue, but on the opposite side of the street. So it's like 3 or 4 houses down from, is it
West.
Jellison that comes in here?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just before you get to the section that's kind of open with woods and the little pond before you get to,
Yep,
where Cross Street.
right, right.
Right, between Jellison and Cross.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think in this case, we just need a motion to confirm the issuance of the
Confirm
emergency certification.
and then you sign.
Right.
Under-
So unless anyone has any questions, do I have a motion to confirm the emergency certification?
And this would be for the soil evaluations first.
You know, for the soil
Or
evaluation.
do both of them at once.
Soil evaluations and certification for the construction of the septic system. Just so you know, when this sort of thing happens, Brent's very good about keeping me and or Kurt in the loop on them. So he's not just doing it himself, he's checking with us, with me, and often with me and Kurt both.
Well, there was,
At
you
every
sent
step.
out an email to all of us on this anyways, didn't you?
Mm.
I
believe-
may have.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yep.
May have, yeah.
But even if he doesn't do that, he certainly always checks with me. So do I have a motion?
So,
And a second?
Second?
And this is on both. All in favor?
Aye.
And all against? And the motion passes.
So you do not need to date it, you just need to sign. I date it just because of when I sign it for issuance.
How did that come to your attention, the Board of Health?
Board of Health, yeah. as well as Mr. Grasso of Professional Land Services. He actually anticipated filing for an RDA, and I consulted with the Board of Health and went down there and saw that goo was on the surface and didn't want to wait for the meeting, so.
Yeah, no, exposed effluent is never a good thing.
Yeah.
Usually it gets kind of wet down there, doesn't it?
Basically, when the wetlands were delineated, they came up about 15 feet up into where they'd previously been mowing for lawn. It's actually very similar to the same situation we had down here on School Street. Large willow trees were planted because the property was so wet to try and help suck up some of the moisture, but it's still delineated out as being.
It's a poor man's drawdown.
Where'd they end up putting the system?
Right in the front, there's like a stockade fence, and I guess
Yeah,
he
in
had
front.
one of those temporary canvas things, I guess, was being moved, so it's, I don't know whether that was previously filled or not, but it was substantially 4 or 5 feet up gradient from where the delineated wetlands part of the lawn was.
Gradient goes down quite a bit on that side of that road.
Okay, and the last one I forgot to bring to you folks, I think at the last meeting we had, and that was for Mr. Beasley.
Beavers.
But, yeah, beavers, and because of the time of year, and also it was Mr. Ed Moran's property, 430 Weathersfield Street, that the beaver impounded water was actually coming up into fields that Sam Herrick plows and plants on. So one of the criteria under the beaver matrix is that if the beavers are impacting agriculturally tilled lands, and we had the issue with when the tilling was happening, that we actually had some sediment and stuff get into the river, which was cured by a compost berm. In this case, the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, in their guidance, because of the time of year, will only allow the water level to be dropped a little bit and not expose the doorways to the lodge, because the beavers have cached their food and have settled into the lodge. They do not hibernate, they stay active and they need the food source. So you can't expose their lodge doors according to the regulations, which would compromise the integrity of the lodge and also let freezing temperatures and stuff get into it, and they would not mainly survive the winter with that. So a breach was done only to drop the water level. We estimated about 6 inches, and that actually we're not sure whether the lodge that we found was still occupied or not, because that did not attract any attention at all or any response. The last I knew, I haven't checked on it recently. So I am requesting confirmation of the issuance of that. And of course, this was done in response to the Board of Health issuing their decision that it met the criteria. We are in the trapping season, so if he wanted to hire a trapper, he could hire a trapper. And the Board of Health has given them permission to use the restricted traps if they so desired, but there wasn't any sign of any animal activity last I knew.
So, any questions?
What lot number did you, or house number did you say?
430 Weathersfield Street is
Okay.
Mr. Ed Moran's address, which is map 12, parcel 3.
Okay. You said 30 before.
I'm sorry,
That
didn't I
can't be
just say
right.
430?
Yes, you did. just
430,
now.
okay.
Any other questions? So we need a motion to confirm the issuance of the permit, I think. it would be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? The motion carries.
Well, let's, going around, if I may, mention an item that came to my attention recently from Debbie Egan, sending an email to Rowley Accounting and Laura Hamilton, and Karen Summit, who's the treasurer. Laura Hamilton is the manager of the water department, and she's also the main financial liaison with the town for the Community Preservation Act Committee. And Debbie was reporting that the Brad Street house and barn at 239 Main Street was sold this afternoon, which was December 28th, to Michael Sabatini in the amount of $285,001. And she's given the check to Karen Summit, and she's on her way to deposit it. The funds will go back to the Community Preservation Act account. So that's a nice return for the money that the town has expended through the Community Preservation Act in acquiring Brad Street property. And it remains to be seen whether any repairs and revisions will be made by the new owner, or whether there are any, I don't even know if there are any wetlands in the vicinity with regard to all that, but just call it to your attention for both reasons.
I think I had copied the commission on an email that didn't have the financial information, but just
Right.
said that it's been.
Under agreement to sell, but it was interesting. I thought the price was interesting.
Yeah.
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 It wasn't what the town originally thought they'd get for it, but the buildings were in bad shape on the property, and a return of $250,000 on our expenditure is not too shabby,
No.
and can be put to further use around town for Community Preservation Act projects.
All right. Anything else?
Yes, one last thing. I received a phone call from Bill Getty, Massachusetts Audubon Society, the director of the Joppa Flats, and also has responsibility for Rough Meadows Wildlife Sanctuary. And he had actually spoken to me before, but called me this morning because his schedule was starting to get filled. He has offered, on behalf of the Raleigh Conservation Commission, to lead a walk down at Rough Meadows in May with either proposed dates of Saturday, May 11th, or Sunday, May 12th. And also the possibility of an evening walk on, I believe it's Thursday, May 9th. Depending on how the commission feels about this, and this would be something that he would be doing gratis for the commission to just sponsor if we wanted to, make an announcement and try to get any townspeople that wish to go on a guided walk down at Rough Meadows.
Would be nice. Be fun. A lot of people in Raleigh haven't realized it's there yet. So I think that's a good idea.
What's the date, proposed date?
Well, that's one of the things to try and get some feedback on, whether either a Saturday or Sunday, as an evening, or obviously on a Saturday, you get a little more variability on when you might want to hold it. We'd have to look at the tide,
Talk of the
and
tide.
what the tide's doing then, or Thursday evening. I think May 9th is Thursday. I'm trying to see the small writing up there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Saturday's the 11th, Thursday would be the 9th.
Yeah, so. it
I guess my
didn't-
thought would be a weekend would be more likely to attract people.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
April would be better before the ticks and the mosquitoes come out.
May's probably.
Well, he was hoping this was also before the mosquitoes came out, but,
Early May is usually pretty good.
yeah.
And it might be a little drier.
Right.
which is the other
That's what I'm
factor.
thinking.
Yeah,
It
he
can be
has.
fairly wet out there.
He has significant commitments. He actually told me, I think he's going to Bhutan for a number of weeks. Mass Audubon has these worldwide natural history tours, and he's considered a very adept trip leader as well as a very accomplished birder, so he
He
is asked to lead
He is.
a number of trips, either in other continents and parts, and so he just wanted to, he had made this offer to me, and I had said that we would be very interested in that, and he just called me this morning to try and firm up some dates so that he could actually put it on his schedule and not.
Well, I'd say either of those dates, 11th through 12th, I don't know that makes any difference to townspeople. And Sunday, I think Sunday's a little easier to attract people.
Right.
I find that
Totally agree.
getting people to do things on Saturday is hard. They're
Yeah.
busy running their errands.
All the things that they need to do.
Right.
Okay.
Sunday's a day of rest.
So I'll tell him
12th.
Sunday the 12th. and
Okay.
Look at some tide information and try and see how that would
Work around the tide.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to get about 20 or 30 people out there and get them marooned in a high tide. Port planning.
Make the
You all
newspaper.
brought your hip waders, didn't you? You didn't? It doesn't get that deep.
No, I don't think it would be that bad.
6 or 8 inches though.
Seas are rising, but not that fast.
Fix the hole in the culvert so you don't have to worry about turning your
Yeah, I
ankle
was
like
gonna
a-
say,
into
that,
the culvert hole.
that's the treacherous spot,
Yeah, that's right.
when the water's rushing through there.
That's nice of them to make that
Yes.
offer. That's of him, I guess I should say. Okay, anything else? Anybody else have
Thanks,
anything
unless
else?
I've forgotten something.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn? And second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning?
I-
All against.